moving forward every day. Jesus, I just let him lead the way every second, every minute, every hour of the day. I'm moving with Jesus every day. 24/7 with Jesus every day. 24/7.
Genesis chapter 14, verse 19 says, "And he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, might add, possessor of heaven and earth." You guessed it. Today we are going into a very intricate and delicate subject, getting high. And what better person to invite into the studio than the guy who is high in demand? He is highly respected in his field and a guy who speaks very articulately and is very forthright in his comment. I'm speaking of none other than Dr. Clive Dottin. He is the Public Affairs and Religious Liberty Director of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the Caribbean. Thank you for taking the time to be with us, Dr. Clive Dottin.
My privilege, sir. Thank you for having me.
Welcome back. We're getting into a very, very intricate subject here. And before I speak on it, let me just present the backdrop to it. It's about weed, cannabis, marijuana, a drug that has been heavily debated, and in some cases it has been legalized. And we want to maybe look at this subject in a very broad sense so that we can, bring to bear upon the discussion some facts and effects that I suppose the public can benefit from.
Sure.
First of all, tell me, how long have you been in the, not on drugs, but how long have you been?
I know you want to say that, you want to say that.
How long have you been in the research of this drug, or perhaps, drugs in general?
I would say about 35 years.
35 years.
And with that comes the process of counseling addicts,
Right.
developing institutions, visiting other institutions I have not developed, and of course, participating in international training programs.
Okay.
I'm also a member of the Drug Prevention Network of the Americas.
Okay.
So I see it from different angles.
Okay, so you have had experiences with persons who were hooked on marijuana,
Thousands
cocaine,
of them. Yes.
other kinds of drugs.
That's right.
So you deal with addiction.
And of course, you have to look at the issue of the mixing of the drugs now, like
Mixing of the
cocaine
drugs.
and heroin and that kind of stuff.
Okay,
Yes.
so you have dealt with that.
And one of the things as we are approaching the carnival season is the polydrug user.
Right.
Because what you have going on now, people talk about drugs, in isolation, in silos. So you talk about marijuana, but you have to understand that a lot of our young people are on 3 drugs. They're on marijuana, then tobacco, they're on alcohol, and a lot around this time when the emphasis is energy, get the energy.
Okay.
When by the time they reach carnival, they burn out from the burnout.
Right, okay.
You have the energy drugs coming into play too. Okay. So you have a whole mix
What would
impacting
make
the brain.
somebody get polyaddictive or get on these drugs together? What would cause somebody to want to do that?
I think part of the problem is the excessive advertising. They say don't advertise tobacco, but you see the excessive advertising.
Right.
I watch the television, you almost feel as if you don't drink around this time, you're less than.
Right.
And then you have the peer pressure, and carnival is about a group thing also.
Right.
So different people experimented with different things,
Right.
and everybody boasting about the high they're getting.
Okay.
Not about the low,
Right.
but about the high.
Right.
Although now we have Massey now, right? Not high-low anymore. So a lot of people are into that. So the age 15, 16, 17,
Right.
and even before, it's all about experimenting.
Right.
And people talk about the ultimate high. That's
Right.
that's a big word now, the youth population, the adolescent population.
Right.
They don't talk about the ultimate schizophrenia and what is called interfering with the cortical oscillations of the brain. They're not talking about that. Right. They're not talking about, you see that, about the cancer, about the carcinogens and the stuff. They're not talking about that. They're not talking about the cumulative effect. All they're talking about is the ultimate high. And then they hide and they suffer privately.
Right.
That is also, so there's a lot of experiment. And then, for example, fellows have told me, Pastor, you innocent. But what is great? Don't chase that rum with the coconut water, Chase it with the energy drinks. So you see, you get almost a jolt of electricity. Right. And they advertise that.
Wow.
Wow. Hope they don't accuse us for advertising that now.
I hope not.
Yes.
So they mix up all these drugs to get that.
And what they have is a kind of neurological tug of war going on. Right. One drug pulling, so the other drug pulling in a different direction. Right. Okay. You're mixing the stimulants with the depressants, with the dissociative drugs. That is what is happening there.
In your experience, you've had several cases of individuals who were either hooked on cocaine or marijuana, even, I suppose, cigarette smoking and alcohol. Of all the categories, how do you categorize the effects, the negative effects these drugs have on the human body?
Well, let me go to marijuana, since that's the big thing now. Sure. Mm-hmm. Marijuana is not water-soluble, the delta-9 THC, which is the mind-bending affecting agent, one of them, the psychotropic agent, to give the comprehensive medical term. That is fat-soluble. So that for 3 months, 6 months after, you're still getting the flashbacks and getting the impact. Right. And I have told people that there's a lot of suppression about information. I think when it comes to the marijuana issue, a lot of countries in the world are so hell-bent on legalizing as the cure, as the panacea for crime, and emptying the prisons. I feel it will have the reverse effect. Right. I think that is what is taking place there. So marijuana has what is called a cumulative effect. All right? So fellas say, well, legalize 2 sticks. Well, a lot of people get 2 sticks. And then there's the blurring. And there is a particular author who has spoken about that. You know, the blurring. And I want to talk about a guy called, he's an anesthesiologist, Dr. Ajay Wasan. He said, you know, most people think when you legalize it, it's safe. So they conflate or confuse legality with safety. Right. And that is how dangerous it is. For example, there's a guy called Dr. Akira Murashima. I believe he's the #1 cellular heredity expert in the world. Mm-hmm. And in a 20-year study, now, have mercy. You studying this thing for 20 years, doing research. He has said, he said all drugs, including heroin, does not have the damaging impact upon the DNA of the human cell as the marijuana. Now, cocaine gives you a knockout punch, a kind of Mike Tyson thing. Right. Bam! Mm-hmm. You overuse it, you start, you get a high, and you want to, preserve the impact on the high, because you don't like the low. Right. Everybody talks about the high, but very few people talk about the low. Mm-hmm. And so what happens, you get the brain damage and the heart damage. You get the one step before the heart attack called ventricular fibrillation. You get that, all right? But marijuana is a deceptive drug.
How deceptive is it?
Exceptionally deceptive.
Why call it
because because you see, it takes time, all right? It takes time. So you feel nice. Your speech is slurred. You have the apathetic effect. And of course, this guy who is talking about recently, Asaph Keller, I think his name is, University of Maryland. Hear what he's saying. He's saying even the development of schizophrenia, he is no Adventist or no Christian as far as I understand. He's just an expert. And by the way, I have the document right here. He's backed up by a girl called Sylvina Mullins-Raver, and they're all from this. You see, we talk about research, and fellas say, well, Pastor, where you get all them research from? I say, well, you have to look at the authenticity of the institutions doing the research. Right. They have a track record. Right. And he's saying even the development of schizophrenia, loss of touch with reality, inappropriate behavior, all of that, lack of motivation. People are now talking about the anterior rostral cingulate cortex, part of that prefrontal cortex there, and they're saying that is also damaged. And hence you have the amotivational syndrome. Years ago, when I just started the research, I was very interested. Not because I was using it as you hinted just now, but because I see the potential for damage. Right. All right? And Keller is saying no. The research I'm quoting is in the past 3 years. Keller is saying what this girl, this female researcher, Dr. Salome Keani, all right, from University of California is saying, and what Wasson is saying, and what Murashima is saying, what Nehas has been saying for 30 years out of the New York School of Medicine. They're all saying that, the issue of short-term memory loss, emotional stability, the development of schizophrenia, which is a huge mental disorder. Right. You can't manage your emotions, You have a false belief system, you have delusions of grandeur. You could even announce one day, if you get a chance to go on media, I am the Prime Minister, I replace Dr. Riley. So, you're out of touch with reality, abnormal behavior, and difficult to control.
So why would you ascribe deception to that drug and not deception to a drug like alcohol, for instance?
Well, you see, what happens is that the alcohol is also deceptive. But again, you see the impact quicker, more quickly than you see with the marijuana. And as I said before, it is fat soluble, it's interfering with that DNA. You take some time, and then bam, fellas saying I smoking it for 5-6 years. Nothing had happened to me yet. Right. I was talking to the tobacco smoker from Pinto Road. He said I smoking tobacco for 68 years. It didn't do me nothing yet. But you know, all over he trembling like a leaf in a tsunami breeze. So you have to watch it. The other thing is the carcinogenic substances. Now, I am accusing experts, even some from our dear universities in the Caribbean, you included, of either being too lazy to do the homework or trying to be part of this postmodern thing and they want to be called old-fashioned or archaic. Because, you know, people tell you, step into the modern world, man. You quoting 1844, 1840, step in the modern world. I tell him I'm quoting for the last 3 years right now. On this program, I'm quoting within the last 3 years. And fellas, use that kind of thing. Look at the issue of cancer. There is a dangerous substance in marijuana and tobacco. It's called benzopyrene. Now, there's a gene in the body that controls cellular growth. I mean, God has made us fearfully and wonderfully, you know, and we mustn't destroy it because the body, 1 Corinthians 6 says, is the temple of the Holy Ghost. And the guys are coming up and they are saying quite frankly that a lot of the lung cancers come from the benzopyrene. And what happens as they do their qualitative research is that the stuff from ganja and tobacco, the nicotine and the delta-9 THC and all that kind of stuff, what it's doing is suppressing the gene that's supposed to suppress growth. All right? Because it's out of control growth. That is what cancer and cell multiplication is all about here. And so that the damage to the P53 gene is what exposes the body to what happens after. So there are carcinogenic substances in it. Dr. Tulane Heath, since 1985, was talking about the issue of emphysema and bronchitis. And that is proven by the new kids on the block, the Murashimas, the Kellers, all right, the Kayanis, the Dr. Wongs, Asan, the anesthesiologist, all of them. But the damage to teenagers, all right, the frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex of teenagers is significant. And they are saying some of that damage is life damage.
But Doc, there are those who believe that this drug brings them into contact with a higher being.
Yes.
You are saying it's damaged, but they are saying it's actually liberty, liberating.
Exactly, and that is part of the hallucinatory stuff, you know. All right,
So
that is part of that's part of the hallucinatory stuff. And I don't know. I have never heard of Haile Selassie ever smoking this stuff. Now, I could be wrong. I could be corrected by the Rastafarian community. But I never heard where he did it and asked people to do it. And I am sure there are benefits, all right, from it. But you don't, not to smoke it to get the benefit. Because that changes molecular configuration big time. And that is well known. All right. And, of course, they've had some results with I believe, the glaucoma, the issue of the chronic epileptic seizures. Well, therefore, since you have substances there, you have the issue of for medical use. You extract the chemicals from it, all right? You don't have to mash up a whole generation because, let me tell you something, in the region, I have seen 2 or 3 generations lost already. I visited 25 countries and 26 others outside the region, and I have seen the humongous damage it has done. I was just in Providenciales in Turks and Caicos with the Law Transform Me program. And I've seen schools where, and the link between the drugs and the weaponry. And let me tell Trinidad something, unless we deal, and I want to caution the Attorney General and the government, be careful. Because everybody wants the votes of both the government and the opposition. All right, and you realize the quietude on one side, while the other side is saying we have to go ahead. And one guy asked a question. I was outside of the country in Turks and Caicos, where I spent about 3 to 4 weeks. And I saw somebody ask the Attorney General, well, after decriminalizing, what next? Because the time has come to legalize it for social and recreational use. And I want everybody, including the Attorney General, be careful you're spelling recreation. Because if you want to legal, that'd be a bad decision. It will mash up the brains of several young people. It will produce their motivational syndrome. What you're going to have is a lot of, and people are mad with me for saying that, a lot of zombies on your hand. Damage to the issue of the intervening cortical oscillations. And by the way, I want to say this. Even the females are not spared, you know. Dr. Peter Gently in Trinidad, a local doctor, been talking about the issue of damage to the tail of the sperm. All right? I had a horrible experience in San Fernando General Hospital many years ago when I just started on this journey, this activist journey of a guy who had hydrocephaly, and both of his parents were smoking. And by the way, we now have not just the fetal alcohol syndrome or the fetal cocaine syndrome, we have the fetal marijuana syndrome. And the experts are saying there's no safe usage for marijuana. In fact, they've gone on the other side.
Right.
And what they are saying now is that even the process of aging is accelerated by about 3 years by the constant use of the stuff. And Nehas was saying 35 years ago, all right, about the damage to the immune system, and especially the T cell, which is the chief executive officer of your immune system. He was saying the damage of using twice per week for 5 years, what could happen? Apart from the bronchitis and the incurable emphysema. He was talking about that, and all the experts are saying that now. There's a West German doctor who has a heavy name. His name is Dr. Adam Solskowski. Even the name plenty German. It has some Hitler DNA in it. And he was saying, what you have is the acceleration of the Alzheimer's and dementia caused by protein inclusion clots on the neurons of the brain, the cells of the brain. And he was saying that some time ago. And all the experts are going in that direction.
Permit me to interject here. Because
Yes.
you have quoted and documented from various sources.
Yes.
What word of advice would you give to somebody who is looking at research? Because there seems to be research that challenges what you are saying. And now you are quoting from sources that you think are credible that are supporting the non-use of marijuana, while there are others that support the use of marijuana. How does one go about deciding which research and which search is credible?
Well, every Tom, Dick, and Harry could have research.
That's the point.
Especially on Facebook, once you could afford it, all right? I mean, you could have me, my fellas, supporting the mafia and tell if you legalize cocaine and legalize everything you saw, it's a panacea. Holland has not proven that. But let me come to the issue.
Sure.
Research institutions have a track record, all right? This goes through a lot of screening, all right? There's one research from University of Michigan, and they're quoting from 200 clinical studies. You have to look at the institution that is involved in research. You have to look at the credibility. What is the track record of the researchers? All right? And you have to look at the methodologies that are used. All right? And you have to look at the size of the sample, whether it's a longitudinal sample or not. You have to look at all of that. For example, let me deal with Keani right now, female researcher. Now look at the size of the sample. 16,280 adults. Now that is not 500, that's 16,280. All right? And she's saying, a lot of people see it as a medical panacea, but she's not saying that. And I want to read this part.
Sure.
She says, while studies have shown that cannabis can help quiet seizures in children with hard-to-treat epilepsy, quell the nausea and vomiting that can accompany chemotherapy and soothe nerve pain, there's no evidence it can help with a vast majority of problems. There's a girl studying this thing, longitudinal study of 16,000 adults there. Now, you can't just throw that away. And by the way, the guys who are quoting, all right, but a lot of them can naysay what I am saying here, you know, because Morishima is the #1 expert when it comes to cellular heredity. And he's talking about 20 years of research.
So he was addicted to research.
I'm telling you, he had an addiction. I want to mention one thing that has recently been highlighted by Dr. Mark Siegel. Now, fellas like Mark Gold is regarded, all right, in clinical studies as the #1 addictionologist in the world. You know what he says? As the perceived level of the dangerousness of a drug goes down, the use goes up.
Wow.
Now, let's deal with a piece of history there. Got to come with history here.
Come on now.
No, 1996. That was when California decriminalized. 16 years after, they legalized. Because, I mean, it's a foot in the door strategy, you know. I believe our government is going in that direction. But let's go to happen in 2012 in Washington and Colorado. And let me shift to Jamaica, because people say, but you're only talking about outside countries. You ain't talking about Trinidad. You're talking about the Caribbean. Let's deal with that. Now, the experts are now saying what they have seen in Washington and Colorado is that you have seen an increase in teenage chronic use by about 14 to 16%. I have it right here in front of me. I could show you too, 14, in case fellas feel I have some Bible study in my hand and quoting figures. Increase in usage, all right? Now, the lady we have to quote right now is the lady in Jamaica. Was very interested in Kamala Harris, presidential hopeful on the Democratic side. You know, they're always left-leaning. She says, they ask her, have you used? She said, but I'm Jamaican. You'll ask me for your views. And the father jumped on the back one time. He said, don't give me any identity that once you are Jamaican, you're pro-legalizing of this stuff. And he put his daughter in a place, and she's a presidential hopeful. So that is what is happening here. Now, Dr. Tufton is the Minister of Health in Jamaica. And that Minister of Health is telling us what has happened in Jamaica, all right? After they have gone in the decriminalization route for certain amounts and things, they've seen more children in the clinics affected by the dangerous stuff in the drugs when it is smoked. I want to repeat that, when it is smoked.
Which brings me to the question, because I would want to believe that marijuana is essentially a herb.
Yes.
Or herb.
Yeah. Drop the H to suit our friend.
So it's created by God, one would think. So it must have some medicinal properties.
I believe so. And there's research showing that, and I'm not yet to deny that at all. I'm also want to say, in case the Attorney General and anybody else might get a little jittery, all right, and develop any Parkinson's disease as I speak, that I understand, I'm not happy, but I feel the law can be amended. I don't feel like find a fellow with 2 sticks of marijuana, that you have to jail him and overpopulate the place. You could have a ticketing system, you could have a point system, or some people have used, and 3 strikes and you're out. Okay, so I'm not a beast, a Lego beast. So I appreciate that level of thinking, but the minute you legalize it for social and recreational use, all right, that is where your problem is. And when you talk about smoking, and you're changing up the molecular, configuration of the thing, you have a real challenge. There is not, and I am accusing some academics of deliberately either too lazy to do all the body of research that is available that shows you the cognitive damage. The issue of putting you on the road to the schizophrenia odyssey. All right, the issue of damaging that T cell, the issue of even females, Jones and Jones. All right, they are gynecologists for donkey years, and they have been speaking about the interference, all right, dysfunction of the menstrual cycle caused by the smoking and the impact of the mother on the unborn. I mean, they have been talking that for a long while now. Other people like Mark Siegel and them are showing you that this is actually happening. So smoking during pregnancy is a crazy thing. And I'll tell you something, I shudder when I look at what's happening, the looseness, the immorality around this time, carnival time. My opinion is, and I'll get, some people try to shoot me for this, but carnival takes more than it gives. I keep saying that. There's a kind of, what they call a kind of demonic almost freedom of the thing. A lot of young people experiment for the first time. It's a group thing. And that is a very critical thing. What happens here, it's a lot of polydrug use taking place too. And that is like you're shooting the brain with 3 guns at the same time.
Okay. And so that if we look at the medicinal properties versus the smoking, the effects of smoking, you would still feel that we must proceed with caution, or we should not even consider decriminalization of marijuana?
Well, I am saying that for the medical use, now, this guy, and I want to quote him right now, okay, Dr. Timothy Fong, he's a professor of addiction psychiatry at the University of California in Los Angeles. And I'm saying proceed with caution, but I understand that there's a value in terms of substances in it and other herbs for medical use. And that has to be managed. You have to have your proper regulatory mechanisms. We're very poor with that. We are in a state in Trinidad and Tobago and a lot of Caribbean islands in a state of institutional collapse, from the judiciary come right down to the parliament, if you please, there. So we have to have, those mechanisms to monitor what is going on here. Because as was said, all right, by one of the experts, I think Siegel said that there's a blurring of the line between medical use and recreational use. Because people interface in each other's domain. For example, a guy claims he has a problem, and you have corruption in the medical profession too. But he really have the problem, but he want to get it for recreational use. And you have to really have all the reform of prison officers, prison service, and police service, and army, and everything else there before you run pell-mell into this thing. Potential consequences is what every government who really is serious about national development will look at. And both sides must receive the treatment. Those who are saying must be listened to. Those who are saying, listen, all right, we want it for the medical use. Those who are saying we want it for the social and recreational use, who see it as the panacea. But I am saying to you that those who support it for social and recreational use do not have the facts and the evidence as we have, who are against legalizing for social and recreational use, because all of us know decriminalizing is a foot in the door to get it to be legalized. And I'm telling you, knowing my countries I do, and other countries right now, where you have this increase in crime, you have the same problem we're trying to block. And you don't have the clinics and the rehabilitation institutions to take care of the overload that we provided when a lot of these young brains get damaged.
Beautiful. Which, and we have to start winding up.
Yeah.
Winding down, depending on how you look at it. Somebody's hooked on it though, because you did mention that we may not have the facilities to take care of all of those who are addicted to it. But if there is someone who is addicted as we speak and they want help, how do you provide the kind of help that person needs? What would you advise an individual who is listening right now?
All right. The first thing is that you have to admit. Now, I have a lot of parents calling me, even up to this week. Let the child call. Let the teenager be part of his recovery process.
Right.
Don't let him feel because you're taking care of him, you're forcing him to go to a rehab center. He wouldn't stay long.
Right, of course.
We have that Matura Rehab Center there, and I can tell you could call Keith Stewart at 481-8513 if you want to have your child admitted. And there's New Birth, all right, up on the Mount there, very creditable authentic institution. You have a number of institutions around,
Right.
all right? But I'm saying the first step must be taken by the client, by the addict himself or herself.
Okay.
By the way, we have an increased amount of females using now too.
Right.
So a lot of our institutions cater for males alone. So you have to have institutions for the female part of the population too, section of the population.
Right.
And that is something I want to want. The other thing is, what has to happen, a step that the government should be taking is to have mandatory rehab centers. Because right now, the rehab centers you have, you could walk out when you want.
Right.
So you need mandatory rehab centers. That has to be a strategic initiative of any government managing any country in the world, but especially in the Caribbean. We need to go in that direction. So the first thing for the person, admit you have a problem.
Right.
Don't fall for the thing that once an addict, always an addict. We don't believe that.
Right.
If I believe in the power of the Holy Ghost and the blood of Jesus Christ, I would never believe that.
Right.
And if I believe in John chapter 8, verse 32, which is a mantra, friends, forever, when the Son has set you free, you're free indeed.
Right.
But admit you have a problem.
Right.
Come out of the cocoon of denial. And then you seek help.
Right.
You seek help from a counselor. You could go to any health clinic,
Right.
Admit the problem that you have there. And thirdly, there are a lot of, I tell people about the 5 C's. You have to change your diet. Change your enemies, who you call friends, all right? Change your time management strategy. Change the amount of time you spend on the secular and pleasurable versus the spiritual. Have a spiritual change.
Right.
And the 5th one, change your goal.
I tell you.
Your goal in life is not to go to jail. You write down, I'll be euphoric if I end up in the Royal Jail in Frederick Street. You change your goal.
Right.
You change your pattern of thinking.
Right.
And what we call in psychotherapy, reframe your perceptions. What is very valuable, what is not valuable.
How real is the power of Jesus?
It is real. Look at Keith Stewart, the manager of the rehab center. He's over 20 years, he's clean now.
Right.
Gangadine. Ramkumar Gangadine in Mayaro. Several years, he was on tobacco for 30-something years, cocaine and the other drugs for several years.
Right.
And now he's clean as a deacon in the church, elder, what have you there. I have seen people change. And I'm convinced and I know that God could change the heart of any person, prostitute or homosexual. God can change. God has the power to do that. When he, the Spirit of truth, is come, John 16:13, he will guide you into all truth.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
Pastor Dottin, well, thank you so much for being hooked on helping people to be delivered.
I don't want you.
If you are hooked on drugs, there is somebody who's hooked on delivering you. His name is Jesus. You can trust him 24/7. See you next time.